Before we finish this chapter, the last useful tip to help writing and maintaining tests is to skip some tests. Yes, you heard it right. Some tests are expected to fail under certain circumstances, so we must deal with them. For example, if certain features are not supported on a certain platform, they should not be tested against that platform. Sometimes features in our application are not backwards compatible, meaning that they will only work on newer versions of Python. The reverse can also happen when an old feature no longer works on the newer versions of Python. Another good reason to skip a test is that the feature is simply not implemented yet, or it is temporarily removed or unavailable. We do not want to test features that are not supposed to be working yet. So now that we know why we would skip some tests, how do we do it? In pytests, it's very simple. It is skip the whole test by using the skip decorator. You can even provide a reason why the test is being skipped as a reminder for yourself and other developers. Alternatively, you can skip the test during execution by using the pytest skip function. This gives you more control over when we should give up testing. In the example, we are skipping the test when the platform is not valid. Another way to skip a test is to use the skip if decorator. Instead of skipping the test during execution, the condition is tested before entering the test. Like the skip decorator, you can add a reason for it, along with the condition that checks to skip the test or not. In the example, we skip the test when Python version is below 3.8. Other than skipping a test, sometimes we're expecting a test to fail, so we mark it to come back to it later. This is especially handy when you are tackling a complicated bug that would take more than one coding session to finish. You can mark the test to be expected to fail and save it to be fixed later. Also, marking a test as X-fail does not fail the entire test. So if it's not an important bug, we let it pass in order to not be a block for other developments. Marking a test as X-fail is as easy as skipping it. We can add the X-fail decorator to pytest.mark, again with reason for it. In fact, it's a good practice to always provide a reason when tests failed. Note that in this example, the reason is oversimplified, and you should normally have a lot more explanation than this. On top of that, you can also provide condition of when this test is expected to fail. Sometimes, we know a test only fails on a certain platform or a certain version of Python. And with that, the test can still be executed when it does not meet those conditions. Okay, great. We have now gone over the math tip for testing. We have come to the end of this chapter. So let's sum up what we have learned so far. First of all, we were introduced to pytests, a popular testing library, and we used it to write some tests for our mock project. We explore some features of pytests, such as parameterize, which can combine similar tests into one test with multiple parameters, which helps tidy up your code. We have also learned how to test for expected exceptions and how to treat them appropriately. We also learned about fixture, which allow us to take some elements that is irrelevant to the test out of the test itself. This makes managing the test much easier. Last but not least, we know what to do if we have tests that are expected to fail under certain conditions. We can then skip the test or mark it as no fail. This way, we can get past the test and not block further development. Now, before we move on, let's check if we still have all the files that we need in the project. Like in the previous chapter, we still have our project.toml and the project.log files, even though we are not changing them. It is important to keep them so we have our project setup saved. Then we have reminder.py, our mock application that lives inside of it. You may also find out that we have reminder.p. This is the PITO file that our application generated to store our task list. Finally, we have the fruit of our work in this chapter, podcast.py, which store all of our tests. Feel free to develop them further and come back to it if you want to remind yourself of what we have learned. If you are not sure if you have everything, all the project files can be found on the GitHub repo. Now, let's move on to the next chapter.